Welcome to another Instagram Live. Been a while since I've done one of these, so I thought I'd come on here and talk about some different things that are getting spoken about in the groups quite a lot. So, if you haven't seen already on Instagram stories, I put it up quite a bit. There's a Facebook group called OCD Recovery Group, and if you go in there, that's a free group where you can talk all about OCD. We try not to do any reassurance in there, and I'm trying to make it very different. Like with my WhatsApp groups, I try and make it very different to what's already out there because there's so much reassurance that goes on in these groups, and they're not specific, and people go all over the place with what they're asking, and it's just constant stories of usually I've got this, have you got that, and no sort of journey towards recovery. So this is all about recovery. What works, what gets you better, instead of things that have left people stuck for so long. And that's a bit about what I'm going to be talking about today, about being stuck and what that's like, how long people tend to stay stuck for before they come in to get better from OCD. Now, on average, most people that I see have probably been to maybe 4 or 5 therapists before they come into me. They've usually spent years reading online. They've usually spent a great deal of money on a lot of therapy, a great deal of money on a lot of books. They've really read so many forum posts. They're really knowledgeable by this point, a lot about OCD, but they tend to usually have a great deal of knowledge about uncertainty. They've usually done quite a lot of mindfulness. They've usually been to therapist talking about uncertainty, leaving thoughts there and so on. And after all that, they're still very stuck, as I was, because OCD doesn't silence the voice like that. Often it does with uncertainty, and uncertainty plays a large part, changing our relationship with the OCD and changing our relationship with the thoughts and facing fears and so on. They usually have not come across acceptance, deep level of acceptance, unconditional self and life and other acceptance. They usually haven't got much knowledge at all of the founder of CBT, as do most CBT therapists have very little knowledge of the founder of CBT, Albert Ellis, and his work. So it's usually getting them started with learning all about that, learning about what he taught, and about the path to unconditional self and life acceptance, which provides a framework that OCD can't latch to, because just by the term here we can see unconditional means that there is no conditions to how we accept ourselves, because OCD is constantly looking for things to tell us, oh, you can no longer accept yourself because you did this or you did that, or if this happened in the past, or what if you did this thing, or what if you thought that. And it's always looking for that to make you write yourself off, so you feel like, oh my God, if I did that, now I've got to replay everything to make sure that didn't happen, and so on and so on. And that's what it does, and that's what left me stuck for a very long time, because obviously it locks on. And OCD is not a thing where you can just, when it locks on, it locks, and you can just sit here and go, okay, look, I'm just sitting here and I'm doing nothing, all right, I'm just going to leave it there. Now, when you do that, the anxiety is just pumping away, and you're like, okay, I'm just sitting here, I'm living with the uncertainty, but it's just pumping away. Well, it's not as simple as that, because you've got to really believe it. You've got to see it differently. See that everything that we see, everything that we feel, our reality, our whole reality is a perspective. So the reality we live, what we call reality, is our perspective of things, okay? And that relates to ourselves, that relates to what we want to do for a living, what we do, how we act, who we go out with, our relationships with our families. Everything is a perspective. So what we're doing is I'm constantly working on a daily basis all the time about changing people's perspectives. You know, people I'm working with, some of the people that I work with, the level of most people that come into me and see me are people that have suffer with OCD chronically, where it's affecting their life day to day all the time, and it's been doing that for usually quite a long time, or maybe a year or 6 months, but usually 5, 6, 7, 8 plus years. And I work with people that are the most sort of so-called severe on the planet, so people that haven't left the house for 20 years, people that have had multiple suicide attempts, people that are in mental health hospitals. I speak to them from the hospital. People get referred to me who've been from hospital to hospital, never thinking they could get better, so on. And I'm dealing with people who are suicidal on a daily basis all the time. So I see all of that. So everything that I'm doing is trying to really anchor straight in there to change perspective in those situations as quick as I can, because that's where it's most needed. So much. I've never, thank God, never lost anybody to I'm not religious with that thank God point there, but I've never lost anybody to a suicide in all the years I've been doing this. And I like to think of that as mainly down to I form a very strong connection with the people I work with, so I'm working very close to them and seeing what it is what their views are, what's making them so disturbed, why they're feeling like that, and how I can anchor in there to show them why it's so important to stay alive and to change their perception on what's bothering them. And if you look at, I've always thought, whenever I read in the paper about anyone who's died to suicide or whatever in the paper, I always think I would have loved to have just spoken to them for 20 minutes to see, because usually I've never really seen, apart from cases where you have people that have got a disease or an illness that they've had for a very long time in chronic pain or something like that, so they've made the decision over a long time. Most of these impulsive, when I say impulsive, not suddenly you just snap, but these suicides where they feel really lost and go for it in a sort of drastic jump from sort of feeling like they can handle it to they can't handle it, and then it all spiraling very quickly, is usually down to irrational beliefs that are in there about their life and how they're viewing it, and feel like they can't go on anymore. So I'm really getting into that and showing them that there's so much reason to live. And I always speak to people and they say, a week, month after what they say, I can't believe I got into a position where I was thinking like that. And that's so common. They always say, I can't believe I got into a situation where I was really thinking about to do that, or I made that suicide attempt, and I got so lucky to be here. And it's so easy to think very drastically, very quickly. There's a great documentary that I often give to people with suicide OCD called The Bridge, about the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, because it's a location along with in Nanjing over the Yangtze River. I think they're the two highest suicide locations in the world of people jumping from there. And I think there's a great bit in the Bridge documentary where one of the guys who jumped, and he survived, he was one of very few people that did survive. He said when his hands left the railing on the bridge, within that second of leaving the railing, he knew he'd made a mistake. And they say something like, I can't remember the statistic accurately now, but something like 80% of the ones that have survived jumping from the Golden Gate Bridge, 80% of them say they regretted it the second their hands left the bridge. And I think that's so important when we think of suicidal desperation or any of our situations. People always come to me and they say to me straight away, "Oh, Rob, you don't know what it's like." Well, they know that I know what it's like, but they say you don't know my situation where I've been ill for this number of years and I can't. This is just so terrible to be stuck like this. And I've been from therapist to therapist, and I've felt like there's absolutely no hope all the time. I see that story all day, every day, because that's the nature of it. If it was an easy disorder that you could just break down by learning to just accepting things how they are, and leaving thoughts there, which you can do in a lot of cases. People like the likes of Howard Hughes, who was one of the wealthiest men at the time, one of the pioneers in aviation, wouldn't have died of the disorder because through letting himself get into, well, not letting himself, but through the disorder, getting into a situation where he couldn't look after himself until he was the contamination OCD had completely taken over his life. So I think a really important thing to think about is to think about, whenever you think, oh, I'm the only person going through this, wherever you are in the world, you're definitely not. This is very, very common, just people don't talk about it. It's always going to pick your worst fears. It's always going to pick things from the past. It's always going to pick, not everyone's theme is different, but it's always looking for varieties of those things. And it's a thing where once you start to get better and start to see it differently, you really very quickly start seeing, that's why I couldn't have got better before. That's why I was stuck before. And it's very much like that until I became in a position where I started deeply accepting the things I was scared of, like, say, for example, HIV, OCD, fully accepting, well, I'm still going to live to 80 odd, even if I have HIV, so it's not that scary in terms of what I thought it was. Those kind of things really got under it, and suddenly it went down. And that was the same with all the health related OCDs. They were very much like that. So, and with any of them, I can't think of one OCD fear that I could have today, both in reality or not in, or just an OCD thought or any of those that I can't see, that I couldn't accept in one way or another, because at the end of the day, everything is a perception. I can see that. There's no reason to ever be frightened of anything in life. There's no reason to ever be terrified, whatever the circumstances are. It's very easy to think that because of our perspectives, how we view things, but there's never anything. And OCD is always going to pick the scariest things. Any health disorder, anything, what the worst that could ever really happen is that you die. And if you die, well, we're dead anyway. That's where we're all going anyway, regardless. But it took a long time to see that and to really feel that and see that differently. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, because as I haven't done Instagram Live on here for a while, if there's any questions that you want to ask me, because I can't even remember where I was going on the specific topic today, because I normally come on these and do them without any notes or anything, just for the purpose of, I always think for myself, I always like to just jump on here with no notes. Not really as an exposure so much, but it used to be an exposure, because I always used to think, oh, what if you forget? When I first started doing these Instagram lives, I always used to think, what if you forget what you were saying, or what topic, or you can't remember things, or you get lost? So I come on and just start talking about things that I think are important in relation to OCD. But it's very easy with OCD for me to talk on all different areas of it, because I work with it 24/7 all the time. I'm on a mission to change OCD worldwide, which I often talk about on this account and other accounts that I have. And the OCD is something that there's so many areas that I can talk about. So it's pretty easy to roll with it and talk about different things. Now let's have a look and see if there's any specific questions you guys want to ask me today. You should do more Insta Lives. Yeah, I absolutely need to do more Insta Lives. It's very important that I do them. I'm away at the moment, and I've just not really. I've been busy doing a lot of stuff with the groups, hell of a lot of one-to-one calls. So I've been pretty busy, and I just haven't got round to doing them. But I will do more of them, because it's a very easy way to get across a lot of the points that I want to cover on here, that people want to see, and it's fast and it's easy to relay information quickly about OCD. Your Insta has really helped me. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I try and put as much free content up as I can on social media about OCD, because far too often people's accounts, it offers very sort of bland information that's not covering things in much detail. And what happens is you see so much of the same stuff over and over, and I thought, I don't want that. I can't have that for OCD, where people are so scared of things that they keep quiet to themselves and never say. It's very, very important that all those points, all those scary things that they think are very openly discussed. Everything on here we talk about openly. We talk about exactly what's involved in POCD, how does it link to false memories, real memories, how does it distort things about our sexual development in the past, HOCD, harm OCD, what kinds of things people get scared of that they've done, everything like that. And because you've got to be real and upfront about that, because otherwise people are going in to see therapists thinking, I can't tell anyone anything, because if I tell them, they might judge me, or they might think it's terrible, or whatever. And in reality, things aren't like that. OCD is very much goes into it. People always say to me, oh, Rob, I've got to tell you something that's a bit disgusting. I don't want to tell you this. I hear that all day long. It's very rare I hear anything that shocks me. I've heard things for years of all different things. That's what OCD does. That's the very nature of it, and that's exactly what it did for myself. So I've seen that for a very long time. Let's have a look and see if there's any questions on here. Okay. How do you approach the acceptance of morally wrong obsessions that bring fear, killing family, or paedophilia? Right, in relation to that level of acceptance, first of all, you want to start on smaller things. So remember, first of all, acceptance does not mean agreement, okay? So it doesn't mean that you agree with the act. What we're saying is that we don't write off the human being as being in totality wrong, no good, that kind of situation. So what we do is we'll start with a smaller act, maybe a violent act, like punching someone or leading up to stabbing someone or something like that, and looking at those acts and breaking those down so that we can see what's involved in those, how somebody got to that thinking. Working out, say, if we had a son or daughter and they committed such an act, would we still love them? And the answer is always yes. Why? Because love is unconditional. So we come at it from so many angles. That's what I do in the one-to-one coaching. It's very specific. I've been working with these fears with people for many, many years, and it's about laying out all the foundations so they can easily start to see, I can see that. You can't just say, I accept it when you don't. Your brain doesn't believe that. It doesn't sort of so-called digest it, keeps spitting the thought back out all the time, and the fear keeps going around. So we need to work at it by breaking it down and seeing it differently, changing our perspective, and that's what I'm working with all the time. And that's how we get under all those fears. And it will always go to the worst fear, murders, paedophilia and so on. But we come at it small to start with and break those sections down as we build up and up and up. Can one completely alter one's brain scan or change one's brain MRI like a normal person? Well, with those brain MRIs, the problem is people get too involved in wanting OCD, like an OCD cure. You don't need a cure. I can't tell the difference between having OCD or not. I can't tell the difference. What people do is they get too caught up in is, what's the amygdala do? What does the brain do? Why do you even need the brain scan? Even if the brain scan showed that you still had anxiety in there, but you were living your life to the full and there was barely much difference, would it matter to you? Because if I look back at my life when I was really suffering with anxiety, what was it like? How did I feel? And how was my quality of life? I still had an amazing quality of life, even when I was anxious, as I was starting to come along better along in the recovery journey. I wouldn't have been anxiety free. I'm sure that brain scan would have shown anxiety all over the place, but I wouldn't have. How was my quality of life? It wasn't bad at all. So you don't need perfection. In relation to, does a brain scan alter back? Well, brain scans show what's rampant at the time. When people are going into those machines, they're chronic OCD sufferers, so they've got anxiety. That brain, that will fire up differently all the time. So I don't think you're going to see much on a brain scan, the same as you wouldn't see if somebody suffers from panic disorder now and again. I think those brain scans, and I'm not an expert on that, specifically done when the person's panicking at that time. So that's the kind of people that they've been putting in there. In relation to, is it more fired up or not, I'm not 100%. I think that the way you want to be looking at all these things, though, is, why do you need to know that? Why are you needing all that amount of information? Because usually what you're trying to do is get absolute perfection, absolute clarity, like safe. You want to have all of it gone from your brain, like a cure in your brain, and that's a large part of the problem that's fueling and driving it. Let's have a look. Is checking something many times and not believing what I checked OCD, or is this normal with anyone? Well, this is a very, very common OCD trait, but obviously variations of this you get with people that don't have OCD as well, because people often have checking related things that you'll see very commonly. Do you have any things you are not confident in as a therapist? Is there anything that you still want to learn? Is there anything that I still want to learn? Well, I think, life is overall a development. We're always learning. If you look at any of the Greek and Roman philosophy, there's always famous quotes that you'll see in relation to wanting to learn. Life is a constant journey. We're learning all the time, and it's like a Buddhist monk. They wouldn't say I'm in a state of permanent enlightenment. It's a constant fading of learning and accepting things on a deeper level. So you're always learning and reading and studying, doing different things. And that's always changing. But in terms of OCD suffering, say for example, OCD recovery is sort of like this, right? All through your life, you're changing, you're learning. But OCD suffering stops along that path. It's not, when you see people, it's absolute nonsense to say things like OCD struggle and journey is a lifetime thing. That makes you think, well, your whole life's going to be taken by it. It's not that at all. The suffering goes there and then it carries on, right? All right, you have to work at it and keep it maintained, but that's how the journey goes. Okay, let's have a look here. Rob, can I ask, did you meditate as part of your recovery? I don't do any meditation. I do it occasionally, maybe every couple of months. But I have done days where I tried it for 20 minutes a day, and I have done periods where I've done it for hours. But I don't. I've never incorporated it now. I don't really do too much sort of general relaxing or massage or anything that I used to have when I was suffering a lot, because of my beliefs. It doesn't attack me because I'm very rational. It tries to get in there sometimes, but it doesn't really get a hold for too long. Meditation is very important, but meditation is often, because mindfulness is a very buzzword at the moment. It's been around for a long time. All this stuff. None of this is new. It's just hijacked because it's it's a popular word, and it's a popular thing at the moment for selling, for people starting companies and selling products and books and so on, because they jump on the buzzword, and it's actually something that's been around for a very long time. It's just because it's very trendy. And I've seen people that have done 90 days straight meditation for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours a day, and they're still suffering very much, because OCD cuts through butter like a hot knife. When I used to sit in yoga classes thinking, oh, I've been told I need this, and this is definitely what I've got to do, and then when I did it and I sat there, I used to be thinking, well, this doesn't fucking matter, is what I thought in my head, because I've killed someone, or I've done something like that, because that's what OCD would always pick. So OCD is going to do that. Of course, I'm a huge fan of a lot of things that Buddhism teaches. Buddhism is often referenced in a lot of Albert Ellis books in relation to how they thought, and then the same with Greek and Roman philosophy that CBT was the formation from. So I'm always reading that and always learning more, because it's a passion. It's changing the mind, building the mind, and like it is a muscle, strengthening it, changing our perceptions on things, seeing what I don't need in life, what I do, how to enjoy my life, how to make myself better in the things I'm trying to achieve and do. It's all learning. I'm always reading. I read so much because of the nature of what I do for a living. It's very intense, my life, in terms of how many people I work with, and the difficult situations I'm working with, and challenging situations they're in. So I'm always looking to advance it and read different things. It's my passion. I'm all about sort of, as they call today, life hacking. My life to make it better and richer in the forms of happiness. And so I'm always thinking, how can I make my life better and adjust me to give myself better opportunities like that, in terms of enjoying what I like and getting rid of the stuff I don't like, and so on. And so I'm always advancing that. When someone has different themes of OCD, do you think it's better to attack all types together, or treat them one by one? No, definitely treat by one. If there's main ones, yes, we'll get into treating one by one. But any more than that, you get very lost. You could be just going after one after another, going on for ages. It gets ridiculous. So you have to come at it with unconditional self-acceptance, or I don't come at it with unconditional self-acceptance straight away often. I'm adjusting the structure of their life. I'm looking at getting them to learn with uncertainty. Many things. It's not just as simple as a blueprint to unconditional self-acceptance and there you go. I come in and look at how I want to adapt their sort of life structure and what things are bothering them, and get those changes in quickly to get the most movement going in their thinking, making them more flexible and stuff with their beliefs and so on. So there's a lot of that that's going on. So it's very personalised to their own situation. And the reason I've got the results that I get, the recovery results that I get with people, is because I am very hands-on like that, very in their life. I don't, it's not a sort of session-to-session approach where you come in and, have you done your homework? No, you haven't. Okay, see you in 2 weeks' time, whatever. It's right in there. We've got the groups are 24 hours a day. You can reach me via message. It's right in your corner, 100%, going for you to get better for recovery. So no nonsense with me. We bring everything out that we've got to do, the homeworks and so on, and we lay out what we have to do and work through. And there's no sort of people drifting session to session, getting nowhere. I call it out and say, look, we haven't done the homework on this. We need to do this, or we need to do more of this, or we've got so on and so on. So it's a very, very straight to the point. That's what it's about. People have wasted. When I say wasted, it's certainly not wasted, because it's formed the OCD recovery journey, but to us it feels wasted, all the years we've spent where we've been lost and not knowing what to do. And so when they come to me, it's very much about getting results, working towards that, and really putting together a plan of action that we're going to work on. And that's very, very important. Acceptance is really hard to do when your OCD has you 100% convinced it's right. OCD is always going to convince you 100% it's right. If OCD didn't make you think it was 100% real, it wouldn't be the problem it is, because you'd be like, oh, forget that, it doesn't even matter. That's what would happen. So it has to do that. That's the nature of how it operates. Please explain about intrusive thoughts in OCD. Why do we believe in those thoughts, even though we know that those are not real and just thoughts? Because you don't believe that they're not real 100%. You believe about 1 or 2% that they're real, or more so and more so and more so, until you're absolutely convinced they're real. So that's why they don't go away that easily. My OCD is ultimately rooted in fear of not being accepted. How best do we face this fear? That's a super common one, and that's what we're working with, and all the time. Albert Ellis talks in a great deal about shame attacking, and it's a very interesting topic to read about in the books, on the reading list. If you look at my reading list, covers that about chasing everyone's approval of us, chasing everyone's acceptance of us. We don't need any of that. Most people in life are following on, copying others to be approved and to do it. And most of my happiness I get in life is actually by walking a very quiet road, I'm talking about a mental road, where I don't need approval of others, which means doing things when I want, doing things how I want to do them. And that doesn't always mean, that means you'll get rejected by, it's not socially, if I want to go and do something or travel somewhere, I don't have to go with people, I'm very happy to go on my own and so on. But that means I'm still doing a lot of social activities, of course, absolutely. Do a lot of social activities, but I can carve out the way I want to live my life on my terms, and that's very important. I'm worried I'm going to act on my intrusive thoughts, although I have no intention of doing so. Any advice? Yeah, absolutely. You're not going to be able to convince yourself I'm not going to do them and settle the anxiety like that, and that's why we come under it with the unconditional self and life acceptance, which I will cover in a lot more detail in another Instagram Lives, because I haven't done them for a while, and there's so much to cover, so I will definitely come on here and do a lot more of that. Guys, thanks for tuning in to watch this Instagram Live. I will be back up and doing a lot more of them. And if you haven't joined the Facebook group, please do that. It will be really helpful for you. So it's Facebook group is called OCD Recovery, same as the name of my company. So it's you can go on there and you can ask questions. I get in there a lot and message and respond as well. So I think you'll find that really helpful. All right, guys, thanks a lot. See you later.